We are joined now by Michael Waller, Dr. Waller, the Walter and Leonore Annenberg Chair in International Communications at the Institute of World Politics, and I'm happy to say also a colleague of mine here at the Center for Security Policy, where he has served for many years as a vice president, and the author of some very important analyses which have achieved considerable currency in recent days because of their relevance to Adolfo Calderon's strenuous criticism during his state visit to Washington of the new law in Arizona, which he finds to be very, unacceptable as it relates to Mexicans, particularly the millions of them that have come from his country, illegally. And Mike, what you have done with your tract is shed some important light on what Mexico itself does with respect to illegal aliens. Tell us what you have found in your analyses.
Well, I read the Mexican Constitution, and I read Mexico's immigration law, and found that it is a crime in Mexico to be an illegal alien.
A crime?
In fact,
a crime, yes it is. It's every foreigner in Mexico is required to have a valid visa. There are about 8 different kinds of immigration statuses that a foreigner can have in Mexico. Everyone must carry their papers with them at all times, or be subject to immediate deportation. Really?
And yes, and they are required to pay the costs of their deportation.
Wow.
It is a crime in Mexico for a Mexican company to hire an illegal alien worker. It's a crime for a Mexican citizen, or for anybody in Mexico, to shelter an illegal alien.
And as I understand it, the citizenry of Mexico is empowered, not just the officials, the authorities, the police and so on, but the citizenry is empowered to participate in the effort to find, identify, and help in the deportation or other prosecution even of such individuals. Is that correct as well?
Yes, they are empowered to make what we would call citizens' arrests of illegal aliens, and to hand them over to local authorities or national authorities for deportation. And in fact, local law enforcement is required under federal law to enforce Mexican federal immigration laws.
We're talking with Dr. Michael Waller of the Institute of World Politics and the Center for Security Policy. You have described what would, by, I think, any measure, be a far more draconian program than the Arizona law, or indeed the U.S. code that Arizona law actually is based upon. How on earth does the President Calderon get away with this kind of rank hypocrisy?
Well, nobody's calling him on it. Now, Frank, we did that paper 4 years ago about looking at Mexico's immigration laws and mentioned how there are prison sentences attached to being an illegal alien. And the Mexican government, which at the time had no official comment, subsequently is saying, oh, well, that's not true, that's not true. So I went back a couple weeks ago and I read the law and found out that last December, the Mexican Congress amended it.
Uh-huh.
And they took out most of the prison penalties, but added very harsh fines. In fact, up to 3 years' salary as a fine for being in Mexico illegally. Point is, the Mexican Congress passed the amendments to the law. President Calderon signed the law, and in signing the law, he reaffirmed personally the fact that it's a crime to be an illegal alien in Mexico.
Amazing. And in this case, then, it's simply a matter that they have not been called out on it. They've not been officially or otherwise challenged by this kind of double standard. And if that's the case, Michael, are there things that we could be doing, certainly as a government, but perhaps even as citizens?
Well, here's what I would do, Frank. I would introduce a bill basically copying Mexico's immigration law and having it as the North American standard, and saying that the U.S., Mexico, and Canada should all share a common immigration law and get rid of all this foolish conflict over immigration status. And you will see the Mexicans scream at when somebody introduces a bill like that, because for them it's absolutely intolerable.
Yeah, I think this is an absolute.
And in fact, Mexican immigration laws are so tight that you cannot drive a bus, be an engineer on a train, or be a pilot or crew member of a Mexican aircraft without being a Mexican citizen first. And you must be a natural-born Mexican citizen. You cannot be a naturalized, meaning you cannot be an immigrant, get Mexican citizenship, and then get a pilot's license to fly a commercial plane in Mexico.
Wow. So, in other words, this is an opportunity, if we were to seize it, to both be doing some educating of the American people, and for that matter, their elected representatives, but also perhaps, at the very least, getting the Mexicans off our backs in terms of the kind of pressure that they're pushing relentlessly to effect an ever greater weakening of America's immigration policies. Michael, we've only got about a half minute left. Can I just ask you quickly, tell me what the Reconquista movement is. Is it a real thing, and should we be concerned that coming with this kind of porous border and lax immigration policies, we may get a very insidious political agenda as well?
Sure. The Reconquista movement literally means the reconquer movement. They want to reconquer United States territory and claim it for Mexico, and they can't do it by outright invasion. So the proponents of the movement are saying, simply change the population, change the demographic, and take it over through immigration, the same way that the Anglos took over Texas from Mexico. The Mexican government invited in all that American immigration into Texas because they wanted to develop Texas as Mexican territory. So but then the Americans outnumbered the Mexicans, and they declared independence. And it's the same model that the Mexican Reconquista advocates want to do in reverse.
We're going to have to leave it at that. Michael Waller, thank you for your insights and a great idea for civic action on immigration reform.